Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. For those who may not know me, my name is Melissa Leon. I'm Director of Knowledge and Systems at Catalyst. We're so excited to have you all join us today to dig into the Catalyst Data Hub, empowered by Impala. And together we're going to learn about the different ways that you can take advantage of this platform. Leading today's training is Sierra Scribala. I'm so sorry, Scribala,
Scribbler.
from yeah who will walk us through some case uses for funders. And we'll also have someone in the chat answering any questions, so feel free to drop those in there. Without further ado, I'll turn things over to Sierra.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everyone. I'm Sierra Scribbalo. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the head of customer success at Impala. If you attended our launch event the other week, you will recognize me from there. I'm also joined in the chat today by my colleague Laurel, who will be supporting any questions as we go through. I'm here today to kind of give us a little bit more of a 102 session. So if you attended the launch or you saw the original video from that, we kind of did like a nice high level, here's what you have. Today, as Melissa said, we're going to be walking through some more specific like grant making use cases and then actually dive through those use cases with workflows on the platform. As we go through everything, as I mentioned at the top, we are recording this. So I will send out a copy of the recording afterwards. We'll also try and include the slides for you there. So you'll be able to access that. Additionally, as I mentioned, there is also a chat available. So as I go through, I'm hoping to have some time to stop in a few places, especially since we're a smaller group and have like opportunities for questions. But also if I'm prattling on and you have something in the middle, feel free to drop it in that chat. I'll try to answer it live if I can see it, or Laurel will be able to pop in and answer for you there. So as we go through here, actually give me a second here. So for our agenda today, we're just going to do a super quick little refresher on like your access through Impala, thanks to Catalyst sponsorship and kind of what Impala is. As I mentioned, we're then going to be going through different workflows, kind of 3 specific use cases, and then doing them actually in the platform with a little bit of a deep dive. So real quick, little refresh on Impala, kind of what it is, what you have access to, what Catalyst is providing for you. So Impala is an online platform that is dedicated to making philanthropy more impactful by providing data so that organizations can make more informed decisions. We have a lot of people who come from philanthropy themselves. Our CEO and board leader, Guy, is on a board of the Jewish Federation in San Francisco, I believe. Our co-founder, Shahar, has his own nonprofit that was actually what kind of kicked off things with creating Impala. So we have a lot of people from the sector that have built this for users within the sector. And we service kind of all kinds of organizations. We have nonprofits that utilize our services for fundraising. We have foundations that use it for their grant making practices. And then also partnerships with member organizations and networks like Catalyst here to provide information and access for them. And then also these benefits for the region that they are sponsoring. So in terms of like what is available within the platform, so this is kind of the quick view of all of the products that are offered by Impala. So at the top level, we have our philanthropic database. So this is a collection of 3 million profiles for every nonprofit and foundation in the country. Our data is sourced from 990s and IRS filings. So we pull that public to date data together and then consolidate it in one place. We then have a really specific approach that we pride ourselves on, which is called our ecosystems research. This is a tool that allows you to define custom sectors and do landscape analysis, see organizations, et cetera. And then we have more feature audience specific products. So as I mentioned, we have nonprofits, foundations, and networks. We have products for nonprofits, foundations, and networks. As a part of Catalyst sponsorship, you have access to 2 full premium areas. So the first is the premium version of our philanthropic database. So we do have a free version that like anyone can sign up for and access kind of basic profiles. The bonus that you are getting thanks to Catalyst is the ability to view those full profiles. So things like all of the grants data within them, insights about funding for nonprofits or grantees for foundations, all of that is included in your extra premium access. And then you also have the Philanthropy Hub. So this is, in this instance, the Catalyst Data Hub, which is a collection of pre-selected ecosystems focused on different regions of philanthropy within San Diego and Imperial counties. So this is kind of like a one-stop shop for funding insights within your region and was built specifically for Catalyst to provide access to it to organizations in the area. So these are the two areas that you're getting full premium access to thanks to this sponsorship. What I also want to mention is that there are these other tools here. So the ecosystems and then these feature ones like due diligence and funder prospecting. These are additional premium applications. So the premium access to these is not fully covered under the partnership. So when you're in the platform, you will still see areas that are telling you you can't access something without an upgrade because they are separate from the partnership. However, you do actually get a little bit of access to some of these features, which we're going to be diving into today. So you'll see my tiny little stars here are indicating not full premium access, but an extra level that you are also getting through Catalyst. So we didn't highlight these again in the launch session because there was a lot to go over, but this is where we're going to be diving into today. We're going to be accessing kind of all of the areas that you have access to so you can see how you can utilize that ecosystems research and also do some portfolio analysis. And just again to highlight kind of that big Catalyst data hub that I mentioned. So that's going to be where we're starting off today. Just a little refresh here. So again, this is a collection of different curated ecosystems of the area focused on different sectors in the region. I'm mostly showing you this, and these are in the slides, so I can send them out to you as a little refresh, but we'll be diving into that full Catalyst hub. So just a little highlight there. So now I've talked a little bit about kind of like what your access is, what Catalyst is providing for you as a part of that partnership and what it entails. But now I really want us to focus as we're about to go into the platform more on like how that can actually fit into your use cases and go into the different workflows that you need to do within your jobs. So I literally had someone ask in a session the other week, like, what is the best thing on Impala to use? We always say, that can be a really broad question. Because it really depends on the task that you are trying to accomplish and the questions that you're trying to answer. It's a very vast product of services that we have, a lot of data in there. And so if you have kind of these ideas or plans guiding you and guiding your usage of the platform, it's going to be more helpful for you. For example, on the call, we might have like EDs, we might have program officers or finance people or strategy consultants. You're all going to have different tasks as a part of your job, even though it all kind of falls under your grant making workflow. So Impala and the Data Hub are going to have different uses for different people on the call. Today, I'm going to be taking us through 3 specific use cases within the grant making process. We're going to be talking about landscape research, so kind of that high level, informing our strategy questions. Where's funding going? What does my funding look like? What is kind of the landscape of options out there? We're then also going to be talking about sourcing and financial review. So in addition to kind of high level trends, who are organizations that are in our area? Which nonprofits should be in our portfolio? What do the finances of those nonprofits look like? Will they actually fit within our existing structure or not? And how you can really explore the information that's out there and identify these organizations and also do some financial due diligence on them. And then finally, we're also going to talk about evaluating your own risk. So, not just kind of looking ahead and looking towards future grantees, but looking at your own existing portfolio of nonprofit partners. Are there any trends there that you weren't aware of? How exposed, for example, are your grantees to like the risk of government grant loss? Is that something you need to take into consideration as you're planning your strategy for next year? So for each of these use cases, we're going to take them one at a time, and we're going to go through different workflows on Impala, accessing those different features that you have. So for the landscape research, we're going to start again in the Catalyst Data Hub, accessing some of those key indicators and trends, showing you different areas where you can answer these different questions. Similarly, for sourcing and financial review, we are then going to go into something new, which is creating your own custom ecosystem. So, this is kind of that extra little bit you're getting of the ecosystems research in order to actually source and identify organizations in your sector, and also using your premium access in the database to then do that initial financial review on them. And then finally, a super new tool that no one has accessed to my knowledge yet, that we haven't shown yet for Catalyst, but this portfolio analysis tool. So again, the little bonus access that you're getting through Catalyst will allow us to view these trends and answer these questions about your own existing portfolio. Again, I know there's a lot of info on this slide. I'm going to be sending the slides out, which is why there's a lot of writing here. But as we go through, just try and remember this structure of these use cases, how you feel like they can fit into your own use cases for the platform. So as we go through, you can try and align these workflows to your own. Okay, so with all that said, I'm now going to dive into the platform, which I already have open here. As a little reminder, you can sign up to the hub if you haven't already, either on Impala's website. So it is impala.digital/Catalyst San Diego Hub. I'm just going to put it in the chat because it's kind of long. You can also access it from Catalyst's website directly as well under the data insights info. So you can access both of those, click join the hub. It'll walk you through the registration process. And then once you are registered, connected to your organization, you should automatically gain access. So I am logged in today. This is my homepage. I'm currently mimicking this Sam Family Foundation to give us kind of a perspective of a grant maker on the platform today. For you, obviously, it will be your own organization. So we're going to start with that first use case, talking about that landscape research. And so for that, we are going to use the existing landscapes that Catalyst provided for us, which includes the Catalyst Data Hub. If you log in directly through either of those links that I sent, it'll actually drop you directly in there. If you are coming back to the platform or anything and you land on your homepage, there's a lot of different ways to get there. First of all, as you can see, I have this lovely banner, which is pointing me in the direction. And if I expand it, you'll see it's actually already giving me info. So it's going to show me the ecosystems that my organization is included in within the hub, and actually deep links to different areas. So what I mean by that is if I want to go in and explore this arts and culture in San Diego and Imperial counties ecosystem, and I already want to dive right into the nonprofits, I could just click this link and it'll take me directly there. If we're not quite sure where we want to go yet, we can just head to the main hub, which I can do by clicking this Go to the Hub button. You can also access it up top in the Hubs tab. You'll see it listed out there for you. So in terms of the landscape research, some of the questions we're trying to figure out here are things like, what are the different trends happening in our sector? How are the nonprofits doing? How is philanthropy supporting them? How is the ecosystem segments changing over time? So within the Catalyst Data Hub, we have a lot of ecosystems we can research. So we have this one at the very top, which is going to include all the nonprofits in San Diego and Imperial counties, and then all of the foundations that have given them grants. Or we can scroll down and we can see these different curated ecosystems. So these are then different subsets of these counties, either broken out geographically between the two or focused on these different cause areas that we have in here. So for a lot of organizations, because Catalyst built this for their members and for the area, you should be included in one of these ecosystems here, whether regionally or cause area focused. And as you can see, the Sam Family Foundation is across multiple, because you can see that little includes my organization badge. So if we want to, for example, let's say that I am a program officer for arts and culture, and I want to just kind of like do some scoping information about the sector that I'm running at the organization, I can check out this arts and culture ecosystem and I can go in and explore it. Now, with that high-level trend information, these ecosystems are great because they're consolidating data from all kinds of places. So we're not just looking at like a single arts and culture nonprofit. We're not just looking at a single funder that says they give to arts and culture. We're looking at the entire landscape of giving. So we're able to see these 1,500 nonprofits located in these counties with a cause of arts and culture, and then look at all of the foundations that are giving them grants. And the first place where we can see kind of these trends of the sector are with these key indicators on the dashboard here. So these are going to be key indicators of health, as we call them, which are basically going to show us changes over time of different areas of the sector. So we have things like the ecosystem size, which is focused on revenue. Nonprofit sustainability is net income versus loss. Staffing, so the number of people that are working within the sector. And then here we're actually looking at the other side, and we're looking specifically at the grants data in the ecosystem. So being able to pull from multiple sources and get these high level trends. Now, for example, if I wanted to know kind of how the ecosystem has done in recent years, if there's any, considerations that I want to have as we're looking at it, I can click into these to view more. So for example, I see that revenue remained relatively stable, although it does look like it decreased a little from the year before. If I click in, I can see this over a broader change of time over this 5-year period of our ecosystems. So for example, I can see, first of all, what things like the top revenue source is. So how are these arts and culture organizations actually getting their funding? Looks like a lot of contributions, program services are pretty 50-50 there, and some other trends of organizations here. Now, I can look at these key indicators just by themselves and say, oh, interesting. It looks like the revenue had a big uptick in 2022 and then has remained pretty stable since then, which is good to see. It wasn't just kind of a spike. But what I can also do is I can use these key indicators and compare them against each other. So I can either compare them to other sectors and see what those changes look like across different areas of interest, or I can even compare them within a sector and see how they work together. So what I mean by that here is I'm looking at this revenue, right? And yes, it remains stable in the most recent year, but I mentioned I'm seeing this pretty decent spike between 2021 and 2022. If I click into the staffing here as well, I see another spike, but this is between 2022 and 2023. And then you'll see here in 24, it's also remained pretty stable at that level, which the revenue has as well. So this to me gives me an indication that perhaps the revenue in 2022, that was a big increase, a big influx into the sector. I can see here, it's not necessarily from a huge increase in organizations. It's not like 100 new organizations were created and all got a bunch of revenue. It's just a big increase in the revenue between those 2 years. Lets me know that maybe that provided some stability and some much needed revenue for these nonprofits that then allowed them to invest in their staffing in the next year and bring more people into their organizations. So by viewing these indicators, we can kind of see if we can find any of these connections, any of these trends that let us know what is happening in the sector at large. And with all of these, I know in the launch we talked about a lot of different data sources and things as well. And I know I've talked kind of this comes from here, this comes from here. When you're looking at these different key indicators, and honestly, just anywhere in the platform, if you're not sure what a data point is telling you or what it's pulling from, we have these tooltips all over. Sometimes it's a little question mark, sometimes it's a little eye icon. So if you want to know what exactly the report is telling you or the data that it's sourcing from, just hover over that and it will better explain it to you. So again, for the Catalyst Data Hub, each of these ecosystems is going to have these high-level trends, and we can view them in the context of their own ecosystem. We can view them in the context to each other or to the broader counties, and we can try and use them to better understand the landscape of philanthropy in which we are involved. The other aspect of that landscape research is not just kind of the trends of what's happening, but also maybe where are there specifically gaps, right? So not just like what is happening, but where are opportunities for us to step in and provide more support. One area I really love in these ecosystems for that is going to be this distribution section. So this funding distribution is showing how the funding from the grants information in here from foundations is going to the different nonprofits in this sector. So looking at this graph, I know there's a lot of things happening. Let me take us through it. The x-axis here is the number of foundations that are supporting an organization. So the number of funders that have given grants to a nonprofit in this time frame. The y-axis is the number of nonprofits within that section. So for example, here we have 160 nonprofits. each of those nonprofits only have one foundation that have given them a grant in this time. The black line is then the percent of the total ecosystem's funding share that that group of nonprofits is receiving. So, for example, here you can see we have 5 nonprofits in this arts and culture ecosystem. Each of those nonprofits has between 50 and 100 foundations that have given them grants in this time. And all of that grants information that's gone to them makes up 53% of all of the funding in this ecosystem. So 53% of all of the funding going to arts and culture in San Diego and Imperial counties is going to 5 nonprofits, even though there are hundreds in this ecosystem. And here you can click in and you can see which ones those are. So, in fact, one of these nonprofits, the San Diego Symphony Orchestra Association, is getting 25% of all of the funding flowing into arts and culture in San Diego and Imperial counties. So, that one nonprofit is an outlier of this information and is really receiving a huge portion of the funding coming into this sector. So if we're looking at this, this is giving us kind of those highlights, those large players, but it's also giving us the opportunities for more impact by showing us what we call these tail nonprofits that are in the lower side of receiving funding. They have a lot fewer foundations that are providing them support. And as a result, you see each of these sections is getting about 1 to 2% of all of the funding. So these organizations, you can then also click in and see which organizations these are, see how much funding they're receiving, how many funders they have. And this is a really great place to go and investigate these organizations to see who could maybe use additional support within the broader sector. So again, when we're talking about doing that landscape analysis, understanding both like revenue trends, health metrics, things like that with those key indicators, we can also really easily visually see the gaps in the funding of our ecosystem and where we could increase our impact and provide more information there. So the Catalyst Hub is really helpful for that within these ecosystems for the landscape analysis. The last kind of question that I had on there is you also want to compare yourself within the broader landscape as well. When you're doing that landscape analysis, like not just these high trends, but also kind of what other funders are there and how do I fit in? So within these reports, we then also have the funder list. So this is where we're now taking kind of a step down. We're no longer just viewing this full ecosystem view. We are now getting into the more specific organizational data. So this is the list of all the foundations that have given grants to arts and culture nonprofits in these counties. And if you are included in it, you will be pulled right to the top. So it's really easy to see your ranking by, for example, total amount of funding that you're giving, or if I sort by any of these others, kind of where your place lands within the funding side of this ecosystem. It's also a great place just to view the funding landscape. So what other kinds of foundations are included in here? Who else is providing this funding? Some other places, like there's a lot of tabs, a lot of data in here. Some big places I like to look at are things like this ecosystem focus percentage. So this is telling me how much of a funder's total giving they've invested in this specific sector within this time period. So it makes sense when we see things like, donor advised funds that are really just funneling money from a lot of places. They're doing tens of billions of dollars that even though there's a lot of money coming through DAFs, it's a small percentage of what's coming out of that DAF entirely. Whereas the Sam Family Foundation is a smaller family fund. They gave $10 million during this time period, and 12% of that went into arts and culture. So it's not an insignificant portion of their portfolio. And if you compare that to other organizations of a similar size, you can see and compare, am I investing more of my portfolio than others that are in my sector? Am I not giving quite as much as they are? So being able to really see kind of where you fall within those different areas can help you compare and contrast your own funding to those within your sector as well. Another thing I really like is especially if you're looking for like collaborators or people who are maybe coming into a sector, is this grantee change column right at the end. So this will tell you who is either like adding or leaving the ecosystem. So organizations that are taking on a lot of grantees have like a net increase in the number of nonprofits they're supporting by the end of this ecosystem than they did in the beginning. So again, a lot of DAFs, but I can see then something like the Cushman Foundation, which is given around the same amount of funding as the Sam family, but has given to a lot more grantees and is actually taking on new grantees. If I click in, I can actually see this trend within this ecosystem. So if I'm trying to identify collaborators that are really coming into a space or investing more, I can really easily see these organizations that are coming in, taking on new grantees, maybe opening up that part of their foundation. So again, I know we've spent a lot of time within this one ecosystem, and then there's a lot of ecosystems within the Catalyst Data Hub that you can do this on. So you can view that high level trend analysis with those different key indicators. Again, compare them to each other, compare them internally within the ecosystem, view that distribution to identify funding gaps, and then even identify gaps in your own funding or just be able to compare yourself against the broader funder landscape. Um, I'm going to pause here real quick to see if we have any questions about the landscape research idea or anything about the hub in particular. You can either drop a question in the chat or feel free to come off mute if there's any questions here so far. Okay, cool. If anything pops up, feel free to drop it in there. We're now going to pivot into that second use case, which is that idea of actually sourcing organizations, sourcing nonprofits in your space, and then transitioning to doing some financial review on them. So for this, I'm going to go back to my homepage. And I will say you can use the Catalyst Data Hub for this as well, because you have lists of nonprofits within those ecosystems. The thing about the Catalyst Data Hub is it is preset, right? You have those existing ecosystems that are in there that are focused on those specific geographies and the specific causes that are in there. But it's possible that you, as a funder, maybe have interests outside of those cause areas, or you're interested in funding beyond just those counties. So, if you want to be able to explore more broadly, you do have the ability to build some custom sector ecosystems. So, on my homepage here, you'll see I have this option to research a sector, and it's telling me I can create a sector ecosystem. Now, this is a part of our ecosystems research tool, which, as I mentioned, is a premium application, which is why you're seeing on my screen things that say limit. So again, this is not something that is fully unlocked under the partnership, but thanks to Catalyst sponsorship, you're getting this ability to create these even simple ecosystems. So with these, the main differences here are going to be in how you can build them and some of the data that we're going to see. So first of all, when I'm on my build page, this is where I can define the sector that I'm interested in looking up. So let's say again that I am, funding in San Diego County, funding in arts and culture, but I'm really focused on supporting like children's arts. There was that broader arts and culture ecosystem, but it was across both counties and it didn't really narrow down to my more specific field. So what I can do is I can build this one instead. So in my geography section, you can see for each of these filters, I can apply one area. So for my geography, I'm going to type and I'm going to put San Diego. You'll see it's going to give me the city. I can keep typing county and I can put in San Diego County. For geographies, you can put in a city, you can put in a county, or you can put in a state. If you leave it blank, it'll search through the entire US. Then I can narrow this down with my causes or my keywords. So when I click into my cause listing, I can now see the full list of categories that we have on Impala. So these are all our cause areas, sourced from NTE codes, also expanded a little bit. So you'll see, for example, I could select all of arts and culture and it'll include everything under it. Or I can actually take these subcategories down and I could go all the way, say, to like arts education, if that's what I'm more specifically interested in. So you have more, again, flexibility in what you can select and how you can define your sector of interest. Today, I'm going to stick with arts and culture. And you'll see as I'm making my selections, the ecosystem is already being created. So Impala is searching for nonprofits that fit these filters. So headquartered in this county with one of the arts and culture causes. And then it's pulling in all the foundations that have given grants to those organizations as well. Keywords are free text. They look through organization names and mission statements, and they'll stack on these other filters. So I mentioned I'm interested in youth, arts and culture, or kids, children, etc. I can use one of those as a keyword. So I'm going to type child because that will show me child. It'll show me children. And you'll see it's now narrowed down my ecosystem to just 41 nonprofits. So there's 41 nonprofits in San Diego County with an arts and culture cause with child in their name or their mission statement. So I'm now really honing in on my program area so I can see the nonprofits that better align with my funding interests. Now, when I click define, you'll see it's structured pretty similarly to what's in the Catalyst Data Hub, but you will notice we don't have access to all of the reports here. So the big difference here is you don't have those insights. So things like the funding distribution are not in these custom sector reports. Additionally, the funder list is not fully accessible. You get the list of organizations, but you can see all of the insights. The data here is not available. What is fully available is on the dashboard. Again, you get those key indicators and those trends. So you can actually also use this for landscape research, but you also get the full list of nonprofits. So now that I have a much shorter, more narrow list of organizations that I know are focused in my specific program area. And beyond that, I even can see the ones that I have or have not funded yet. So you'll see here, I have a little My Contributions tab. If I click that, I'll be able to see the grants information to any of these nonprofits that my foundation has given to. So if I'm using this to source grantees, I can really easily see that 9 out of the 10 nonprofits on this page I have not yet funded to. So this is 9 organizations that I can now research and do some financial information checking on to see if they might be a good option to invite to apply to something. And I can even get that started really quickly within the ecosystem itself because it's going to show me their most recent financial data. So you'll see I'm able to see things like their most recent budget and revenues, expenses. I even can get line item breakdowns of the revenues and expenses in these other tabs. So I not only get this list of nonprofits to begin being able to view and select from them, but I can actually even start that initial financial analysis too of seeing like, are they of a size that I am normally supporting and things like that. You can also, I know there's a list of like 41 here. You can also save organizations to a separate list. So if I hover over, you'll see I have this add to list button. So as you're going through and you're doing this research, you don't have to just keep going back to these large reports. You can create this. You can say perspective. I'll just put perspectives. I can even leave a little note here. So I'll say arts and confirm. That's now saved that one specific organization to a list that I can go back to and I can keep reviewing when I have the time to do so. So you don't have to remain in these large data reports. You can kind of pick and choose and take things out for yourself. Speaking of, the big thing that I forgot to mention on the dashboard, when you create these custom ecosystems, they do not automatically save. So if you spend a lovely time building out your filters, seeing one that you really like, make sure you hit this save button. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to save it. And now that way I can actually go back to it. So there's no limit to the number you can build. There's no limit to the number you can save. So make sure that you save them. You can go back to them. So again, looking at this list of nonprofits, I now have some that I can do some review on and see if they might be more aligned with me financially in addition to their mission. So to do that, I can hover over their name here, and I can also go ahead and view their profile. So now we've been able to do kind of that sourcing. We created that sector that was really aligned with our program area. I'm able to see the list of nonprofits that are aligned that maybe I'm interested in supporting. And now I can go to their page and do some financial review of them. So this is what those profiles look like. Again, you have access to this database regardless of the hub. So you can always just look up an organization and see this detail too. On this overview tab in particular, you have a little AI summary, which is going to give you some insights about the organization, pulling from like their mission statements, their finances, just kind of condensing it for you. But the big thing on the overview I like to look at is if I scroll down, you'll see we have this little due diligence section. Now, I mentioned that the due diligence application is premium, which it is, but what you have on the overview is this really quick charity verification snapshot. So for anyone that wants to see if a nonprofit is revoked or in the Pub 78 or listed as tax exempt, you have access to this on the overview of profiles. So you can always look up an organization and just super quick do that little charity verification, Obviously, once you get to the granting stage, you want to check that with the organization themselves. But again, giving you that first information synced with the IRS to see, is this organization in good standing to receive grants? Now, again, we can also do more investigation of their finances. So we saw like their most recent financial information in the ecosystem. But if I click here into their financial trends, it takes me to that tab to show me the broader view of this nonprofit. So I can now see not just their most recent finances, but I can see those over a 6 year period. So this is 6 years of 990 data visualized for you so that you can really easy view these trends and compare them for an organization. So you can check the growth of them. So for example, like a lot of arts organizations had a hard time with COVID, but have done a really good job bouncing back. And if I scroll down, I can even see they've really been growing out their assets, and I can see kind of the trends and the changes in their different revenue and expense sources as well. So again, getting that nice trend view of an organization without having to pull all of these numbers and figures yourself. If you want those numbers and figures, we do also have income statements. So these are going to give you those line item amounts from their 990s. So their different revenue sources, their different expense sources, and which we saw in the ecosystem. On their profile, you're also getting the previous year, and we're showing you that change percentage as well. So for this nonprofit, the San Diego Junior Theater, for example, I can see that from year to year, they've gone down a lot actually in contributions and specifically government grants, but they've been investing more in their program services and getting some revenue from investments as well. So they're kind of turning a little internally, it looks like, and getting a little more self sustaining with these other revenue sources and have a pretty diverse range of places that they can get that revenue from. Additionally, you can always see the list of funders that have supported a nonprofit as well. So going beyond kind of the raw finances, being able to see other organizations that have supported them, whether you just want to do that for your own check, or if you actually want to reach out to one of these other funders to get some insights about a grantee before you reach out as well. So there's a lot of insights that you can glean from these profiles when you are doing that review of a nonprofit. And again, I found this one by sourcing them through my custom ecosystem, but you can also always just look up a profile anytime with the search bar. All right. If I go back to my ecosystem here. So again, this was kind of doing that workflow of identifying nonprofits in our sector aligned with our programming, sourcing them for something, and then doing that initial financial review across their finances as well. Now, again, these custom sectors that you can build definitely have some pros and some cons compared to the Data Hub. The Data Hub is fantastic because it's pre-built, should be pretty well aligned with you already, and is super robust in everything that it includes. The pros for creating these custom ones is that they are customizable. They're a little more flexible in how you can build them with the different causes and filters you can do. However, you can see here, they're not as robust as the reports in the hub. So you don't have some of those insights. You also can't download these as PDFs like you can with the hub reports. All right. If I go back to my homepage, we're about to transition into that final portfolio analysis. But before I do, I just want to take a pause again to see if anyone had any questions about those custom sectors or profiles, finances, anything like that.
Hi, yeah, I have a quick question about the compliance
Sure.
portion. Do you also have access to state compliance?
Great question. We do not. So we just source federally.
Do you think it's something you will offer?
I don't have it currently like on our roadmap. It has been requested previously. So I know that it's something that our product team is investigating for the future. But at this time, we are just synced with the federal database.
Okay. And then with regard to, I did see a line item within the financial portion about
Mhm.
salaries.
Mhm.
Are you we able to drill down into like my board is interested in the salaries of the key staff, not the overall salary?
Mhm. So some areas we have that. So for example, in the board and team tab, we source board membership and those highest paid staff that they have to report.
Mm,
So in the board and team tab, you can see the last reported compensation for those top executives.
okay, perfect. And is this again, is this part of the premium?
Nope,
level?
everything that I've shown you here is what you all have access to. So I haven't shown you anything that you can't utilize. And even like the board and team and these financial areas are things that are just part of our free database even.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Alrighty. So for our last area, we are going to be doing kind of that last use case of instead of kind of sourcing outward and looking at a landscape or looking at other organizations, going to be turning a little internal to be evaluating our own risk and our own portfolio. So this is using something I don't think we've tapped yet for Catalyst or shown you, which is our portfolio analysis tool. So you'll see here on my homepage, I have this option to analyze my portfolio. As we dive into this, I do want to have a caveat, which is that this is only for grant makers with a profile on Impala. We do only have profiles for 501c organizations. So for anyone that is like an individual fund or like fiscally sponsored under someone or like a corporate sponsor without a foundation, unfortunately, this tool is not available yet. So we're hoping in the meantime to be able to make that more accessible. And so just hang in with me. This won't take long to go through this last part. Um, the portfolio analysis tool, again, is the full premium access to it is a premium application that is not included under Catalyst. But as you can see here, there's a lot that's unlocked for me that Catalyst sponsorship has given you extra access to. The portfolio tool is basically treating your foundation as its own ecosystem because you're your own ecosystem of funding. It can go a lot of places and do a lot of things across different organizations. The great thing about these is they are pre-built on the platform as well. Because we are sourcing your grants data from your 990s to build your public profiles, we're also building these portfolios just for your account. So again, if you have a foundation profile with grants data, you can come in here and this will already be waiting for you. And this is going to give us, again, both high level trends. We love those on Impala, and then also that specific data. So taking us through that whole funnel of what we're looking at. Here on the dashboard is where we're going to get those trends amongst our grantees and learn some insights about the previous organizations we've given to. So here for this foundation that I'm looking at, it's looking at their total grants portfolio. So we have grants info from them from 2013 all the way to 2024, showing me all of the grantees they funded in that time, how much they've given, how many grants they've given. This grantee risk monitor is premium, which is why it's blurred out, which is so I'm going to zoom right past it. We're not going to cover it today. It's part of our due diligence premium application as well. The thing I really want to highlight are these graphs down here as we get into this portfolio trend analysis, specifically this grantee reliance distribution. So if I scroll back up, you can see we have this average grantee reliance across the whole portfolio. So this is telling me that for this foundation that I'm looking at, the grants that they provide their grantees make up on average 7% of their grantees' revenue. We calculate this based on the years when we both have revenue data and grants data so we can both compare. So that's like at the whole portfolio level, an average about 7% reliance. If I go down to this distribution graph, I can now see the nonprofits that fit into those different percentiles. So the average is 7%. You'll see we have some in there, but there's actually a significant portion of grantees on the lower end. And then there's some grantees on the higher end. So these are organizations that are receiving a significant portion of their revenue from the grants of my foundation. So if I were to no longer support these grantees, it would be a pretty hefty percentage of their revenue that they would have to close the gap on. So as you are checking out organizations you've previously given to, being able to understand like your impact on that organization's finances in this really specific way, again, can help you with your planning for the future about who you're supporting and when you are supporting organizations. The nice thing about this chart too is you can also click in and see these organizations. So if I want to see these orgs that are in this 20 or 30% or this 10 to 20% kind of getting into that higher end, I can see the nonprofits I've supported. I can see the most recent year I gave to them and what their reliance is in that year. So for the Flourish Foundation, we gave them a grant in 2024, but we've been supporting them for 4 years. And in that year, the grant that we gave them made up 15% of their total revenue for that year. So again, not an insignificant portion for that organization. And if I don't re-grant them in the next year, a gap that they are going to have to make up. So it can just be helpful, again, to understand your impact on your grantee spaces and how you can move forward in good conscience with those organizations. Can also give you these trends about the organizations themselves. So just kind of, again, those high level kind of summary insights about their finances, understanding the kinds of organizations you're supporting by their operating budget, their stability with cash reserves, how many have positive or negative income, positive or negative assets. And then also if any of the organizations you've previously supported are revoked. So not only do we have that little charity verification on their profile, but we do also flag in your own portfolio if anyone you've given to has lost that status. And again, you can click in and see those specific orgs. Down here in the data, this is talking about the data accessible on Impala, both for you and your grantees. One thing I really want to highlight here, little plug, is this Impala status. So you can see how many of your grantees have actually activated their own Impala profiles. As a part of this sponsorship from Catalyst, it's not just for their members, it's for all organizations in the region. So for your nonprofit grantees that are located in this area, they also get access to Impala. They get access to the data hub, they get access to the database, and even things like those sector ecosystems we just went over as well. So I'll do a little plug again for that in a minute, but you can see who signed up on Impala. You can even invite them to claim their own profiles if you'd like as well. So again, this portfolio is here to allow you to get those high level insights, understandings about your portfolio and the organizations you support without you having to pull these kinds of reports, do this retrospective yourself. Another great area that we can utilize this for is for looking at that other use case of understanding more specifically how our grantees are exposed to certain risk factors, right? So not just overall trends of the organizations in our portfolio, but how those organizations are interacting with the outside world and how we can just better understand their security. So in the grantee section here, we have the full grantee list. And here is a list of all the organizations that you have previously given to. And again, same kind of financial info that you saw in ecosystems because we're treating you like your own ecosystem. In particular, if I go into this revenue section here, you'll see we have a line item for that government grant income. So you'll see I can view how much funding an organization has received from government grants in their most recent year. And in this instance, it's total amount, but I can toggle it to percent, and then I can even sort by it. So I can now see these organizations in my portfolio that I previously supported that are heavily reliant on the revenue they're receiving from government grants, which may or may not be coming through this year. I also then have my contributions tab so I can see the ones that I've maybe supported more recently. So for example, in 2024, I supported the Boys and Girls Club of Vista, have been supporting them for many years. But if I look at their revenues, I see that 66% of their revenues coming from government grants. I am also able to see they have some from contributions, a significant portion from program services and other areas. So they do have a bit of a more, sorry, that was YMCA, Boys and Girls Club. So they do have a pretty diverse opportunity for different revenue sources. So even though they're pretty reliant on government grants, they do have experience in other areas that maybe can help support and get them through that loss of any government grants. Whereas if I look at something like the Marjorie Mason Center, another org I supported recently, they are almost 50-50 on government grants and contributions. They're getting some from events, some from program services, but they are very outwardly reliant on their funding. So again, this may be something that I can support them more with my own contributions. It can be something that maybe if I want to go beyond just finances and maybe help support them with the diversification of their revenue, just better understanding how organizations in your portfolio are structured so that you can better help set them up for success as well. So again, for that kind of evaluating your own risk and you can view those high level trends of how reliant your grantees are on you for their revenue. And then also at the organizational level, how reliant they are on other sources for that revenue, something like government grants. Little tiny bonus use case, which I will finish us off with today, is also in my portfolio, is an overlapping funders tab. This is also on your profile. This is going to show you other funders that give to the same grantees as you. So this kind of loops us all the way back around to landscape analysis and thinking about like our place in the funding ecosystem of everything. This is a great way of finding collaborators. So it's going to show you other foundations that have given to the same grantees as you. And then you can even click in and see what those grantees are. And this is also in the same year. So you can actually see funders that are giving to the same organizations in the same year as you, and maybe open up those opportunities for collaborating and strengthening your sector together. So that is pretty much my section here for the different use cases and the different workflows on Impala. So again, being able to utilize all of those different features is really only as useful as it is for your specific work. So when you're diving into the platform, I really want you to consider, the things that you're already doing offline or in other sources. Do you just need to download a 990 and you've been Googling it so far? You can come to Impala, you can download a 990. Do you want to do broad landscape analysis on a custom sector or on all of Catalyst, San Diego and Imperial counties? You can access those hubs, you can access those ecosystems, and really utilize the tools so that they streamline and support the work that you are already doing. I just have one last slide with some kind of like next steps follow-ups, and then we'll just use our last couple minutes for any last questions as well. So obviously, if you haven't signed up on the hub already, please do so. Take advantage of this wonderful sponsorship that Catalyst is providing for you. You can sign up on their website. You can sign up on our website. As I mentioned in the portfolio, we don't have profiles for non-501c orgs, but that doesn't mean you can't use the platform or get the access. So just shoot us an email. We'll make sure that you get set up properly and can start diving in with all of those tools. And then here's again, just kind of listing out some of those opportunities you can use the hub for, as well as the broader platform. And then reach out to us with any questions. So you can always contact us. We also have virtual office hours once a month. So we try and make sure that you are getting the most out of this by getting the support that you need from our team. And then this, as I mentioned, is my little plug. We do have one of these sessions next week for nonprofits. So that will be focused more on utilizing the hub for prospecting for foundations, as well as their own like financial strategy, checking themselves against other nonprofits, et cetera. So I am going to turn off the recording now. And if anyone has any questions, just feel free to ask them in the chat, or you can unmute and ask them live. And we'll just use our last few minutes here to answer any questions that anyone has.